Liberal attitude, like politically liberal?
No, liberal like open, more
Okay,
like
okay.
liberal-minded. But to get to your point, because I think it's an important distinction, you said that God would want to see us as unequal in terms of IQ or worth. But that is the distinction, because we can say that people are unequal qualitatively without saying that they're unequal before God, which is my position. Because, and we talked about this on the earlier show, when you look at individuals, no two individuals are equal. If I stand next to Myron, he's taller than me.
Yeah.
And if I stand next to somebody else, we're going to be unequal. And I think groups are unequal too. I think that inequality is just a state of nature. I don't think you find equality in nature. The important thing is, though, and it's like you said, we have to love each other. The equality we bring to the table is that everyone has a soul. Everybody is equal before God. And I agree with you. People should be treated with care and kindness and that sort of thing. But that being said, and this is why it's important to be specific. When I look at other people, I think it's important to treat them with dignity, respect, love, that sort of thing.
I agree.
At the same time, that's totally different from saying, like, the government is racist or the government shouldn't be racist or things like this. Here's what I mean. The government has to take into account that people are different.
Yeah.
So for example, like when we have this mass immigration into the United States, the people that are coming here are different from the people that are here. They have a different ancestry, different culture, different background. They speak a different language. So look at those people and say, well, we got to treat these people exactly the same in the spirit of equality. Well, they're not equal. They're not the same.
But why
I don't
not?
know if
they
I
are.
ever
Why
necessarily
not,
made
though?
the argument of equality. I don't know if I said that because I have my own views about equality. I think that equity is much more efficient for society, for even relationships and families. But I think what I'm getting tripped up with and the sticking point that I'm having with your arguments is when you're saying like one specific race is inherently lower intelligence, that opens the door for
On average,
so many.
On average.
And
Well,
you
they're
believe
stratified.
but you believe it's like a genetic component that opens the door for so many people who maybe are not a part of that racial group to disrespect the racial group that you believe is genetically lower at intelligence.
It's a sensitive subject.
And I really do believe in the goodness of you as a person, just the way that you carry yourself and the way that you speak. But I'm assuming you're probably a guy that is like very polarizing and has millions of followers and viewers. There's probably at least a handful of people, or like a percentage worth of a handful of people who take what you are saying and use it in a very, very, very ugly way.
Yeah, you're right about that. And, I'm bombastic about it. But in truth, it's not just about putting Black people down. And I talk about that a lot because I don't think that Black people should be put down. In fact, I think that a lot of their grievances are legitimate. The problem is, though, what you find is it gets mixed up with rhetoric like what you said, where you said God made white people to laugh as a joke. And I'm not trying to put you down for saying that, but I mean, all I'm trying to say is the same could be said really about any kind of statement. Like, we can listen to grievances, historical or otherwise, that people have. By the same token, people could take an historical grievance and say, well, we have a right to be racist against white people because it's a bad joke that God made them. In the same way that, you could take something like I said and twist it. As far as the IQ goes, though, it's stratified. Asians have the highest, then whites, Hispanics, Blacks in terms of average. The only reason I say that is if we want to help everybody, we have to kind of meet them where they are.
Yeah.
And it's like, if that's the problem, then throwing more money at it's not going to fix it.
Exactly. And I agree with that.
Okay, so since we're on it, okay, real quick.
I want to hear from Glow, though.
What are your thoughts on it? Because you didn't talk at all on your thoughts as well. So these two right here.
On what?
For example, he just said on the scale, Black people are lower IQ. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I just don't agree with a lot of what he's saying. He said some stuff earlier about how apparently everybody's brains are different, which I don't know how that's scientifically possible that a Black person's brain is different than a white person's. I
think he was
Express-
hypothetically speaking.
No, he was serious.
No, he's
Nick, you wanna
trying to say
explain
that
that
was
a little
a
bit?
fact.
Well, I mean that, there's this idea we talk about race and we say, well, skin color doesn't matter. I don't think that race is just skin color. I think that what we call it is human biodiversity, meaning there's biological diversity within the human population. So, white and Black and Hispanic and Asian people are distinct categories of people.
Minority. Is what you guys call
people.
it.
Because minority is, in America, whites are going to be in the minority in a decade. You
Not
know,
if you have anything to say about it.
you're right. You're right about that.
I'm trying to make light. This is an intense conversation. I'm
It's
trying to bring
cool.
light.
Well, hold on. So did that answer your question? No, she wanted to
Yeah.
know where
So-
how the brains,
Brains are
different
different.
based on race. That's
So
what she
here's
was
the
trying to
thing
I'm
say.
is
just
that-
like trying to see where you got all this information because like that just doesn't make sense.
Our
Yeah,
innate
nigga.
nature is warm. Our innate,
We're
we are
all-
good people. Like,
Well, ladies, do you know what he? Do you
He's
guys
not arguing
know what he
good.
specifically said?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he specifically said?
Yeah,
No,
he
I
said
don't.
that like black people, white people, Asians, whatever, they
IQ
all got different
levels.
brains. How do
Whatever,
we have
nigga,
different brains?
brains.
No. What he
Like,
said is that, well, I mean, that's a component of it, but what the real bottom line is that he's saying that each race has different IQ level
Right,
averages.
but they don't have a problem. They don't have a
averages.
problem with that, Myron. They don't have a problem with
That's
that. They have
fine.
a problem with the fact that he thinks that black people's brains are different than a white person's brain. They understand the hierarchy, and I understand that too. I understand how
numbers.
like
IQ.
genetically
Stats.
different.
But to
like,
sit here and say, "Oh, I know a black brain is different than a white brain,"
how?
I mean, one's darker.
Because y'all experimented on us.
Okay, there it is.
Because y'all,
it's
'cause
not
y'all
darker than
experimented
we
on
all
us.
got
Here's
the
what I
same
mean by
type of
that.
Yeah, let him
brain,
please let him
So-
explain. Go ahead, Nick, because I don't want to. I think I know what you mean, but I don't
Yeah.
want to put words in your mouth. Go ahead.
So we have different skin colors. That's a genetic difference.
Okay.
And black people look different than white people. Not even just their skin color. Like if a black person turned white all of a sudden, like you could
like
still
my lips will go away.
Vitiligo.
Like, I
Well,
have
exactly.
lips.
Yeah, I mean, I could distinguish that you have. I mean, you look black. Like your
Yeah.
face looks black. My face
I
looks
look
white.
like royalty, baby. Let's go.
Sure. And I think it's so sensitive.
Let's let him finish his point so that she can understand where he's
Okay,
coming
okay,
with the
sorry.
brain thing.
So the point is like people say race is just we're all the same, but just in different colors. And I'm saying that we're different in other ways too. We're genetically different in other ways. Our bone structure is different. Our faces are different. Our skin color is different. And then the point is to say, when we talk about IQ, people say, well, how could black people or white people or Asian people have a different average IQ? Well, their brains are probably genetically different, just like their skin color, just like their bones, just like other things. And so it's to say it would be ridiculous to suggest that every person in the world would have the same average IQ. Why would that make sense?
Right,
we're
but
not
this
talking
is
about
also
IQ, we're talking
but
about
this is
like
this is all
the
his
brain.
this is his opinion though,
I
because
understand.
keyword was
Anatomy
probably
too?
Yeah.
there was no factual
Okay,
in
okay.
that.
That's what I'm saying.
Real quick,
Bones
did that answer the
different.
question or no?
No, because he's like
Our
going
bones are
around the
different?
question.
How?
He's
I'm really
saying
not.
IQ.
When you
I'm not
see a
talking about
skeleton,
IQ.
it's
I'm
just
talking
like-
about the physical brain
Well,
that we all have
he-
and we're born with.
He did mention that we're all differently made. So,
Mhm.
for
I
example,
understand
he's just
that,
saying
but
that.
like that doesn't mean our brains are different. Like IQ wise, that's like shit you learn throughout life. Like you know
I
what I mean?
actually,
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I-
So you're just like
there's
born
a
with a low
disagreement here,
IQ?
right?
Is that what you're saying?
Where-
No,
he told you the answer, but I guess you're not like taking it for what it is.
Okay.
But real quick, thoughts on this, real quick. 'Cause you didn't say anything either.
I'm smart, so
Hold on. So you get it, right? So you get it? Okay, cool.
can I
I
add
think
to this? though?
okay. Let me distill what he was saying.
Okay.
I think what he said is very simple. He said, based on race, people have different features, different looks, different skin tones, hell, even different muscle fibers. African Americans, we know, have more fast twitch muscle fibers, which is why it's easier for them to build muscle mass than other races, etc. Right? Height levels, whatever. So what he's saying is that on the physiology side, we're all different.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times races have a lot of similarities. Then he went on to say, well, we also have different IQs. Since we have different IQs, it would make sense, and the logical conclusion would be our brains are different as well.
Right.
Because if we're different
I understand
physically,
that.
Because
right,
we
understand
learn
that.
differently.
and a component of your brain is obviously your IQ,
Yeah.
then we probably have different brains as well. Because on average, right, the races have different IQs. We know Asians are at the top, whites are in the middle, and then blacks are on the lower end typically. But he's saying if our IQs are lower, that by definition means that our brains are different as well. So that's, I think, the logical
okay.
conclusion he came to.
Right,
And
but
to
again,
Nick's
that's just
point-
not factual. He said it with so much conviction, and that's the problem with people like him. They say things that are opinionated that isn't necessarily factual, and say it with so much conviction that logically it follows, but
Yeah.
there's no science that backs that up.
People
Can I
like
please-
me.
Yeah.
What is that
With
supposed to
opinions
mean?
like you.
White people?
Opinions.
Asians are
Okay.
trained differently. They're trained to
Okay.
Okay, Nick, did you have anything to respond? Did that make sense when I distilled that?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's exactly
So,
right.
you
And
understand
that
what I'm
makes
getting at?
sense.
She got it.
That
Yeah.
you broke
If the
it down like
physiology
that.
is the same,
No,
that
but
means and IQs are different. That means well, the brains are probably different too. That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with
but
what
to
she just
Nick's
said
point,
just
he
now.
did also say
Okay.
that before God we are equal,
Yes.
Yeah.
and which that is fact.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think it's very important for people to understand, especially, and I'm not saying this in a classist way. I understand education is privilege, but if you don't have the education of knowing how to interpret research correctly, you're going to be very hindered with the way that you think about life. We have to understand that correlation does not always equal causation. So it's very, humans like to think very linearly. Oh, racial groups have different stratifications of standardized test scores, for example, which means this is wrong, but races must inherently genetically be different in intelligence. That is an incorrect statement. Correlation does not equal causation. The reasons are oftentimes multifaceted: opportunity, resources, childhood, family life, home life, so on and so forth. I have never heard any type of research that shows there's a genetic difference between the races and their intelligence. I wouldn't even know how to physically measure like is it the neuronal connections? Is it the glucose utilization in the brain that is making the IQ higher? I don't know what that would be. I've never read those studies.
Yeah, we don't even got to go there because there's no way that we can even prove that as a fact sitting at this table. That's like
Period.
a losing argument right
Definitely
there. We
said
can
we
keep it
can't even
going.
measure it.
Yeah, no, because
No, we can't because you're not a scientist, Bill
we
Nye.
can because look,
The science guy.
the literature on this is not disputed at all. I mean, if you look at
So there's literature on this.
there is.
Okay.
Can you state the
Because they're
journal
trying to
by
say that
chance?
there's no
Yeah,
I have it on my phone.
I literally just said that it's not fact.
I feel like
But
it's
it's-
scientifically
Cite your
proven.
Like, it's
references.
not-
Please, ladies, please let him speak.
It's not, I mean, you can do your own research on this, but it's not a controversial thing at all that blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics stratify along those lines in IQ tests.
That's not
standardized
controversial.
tests,
That's not
SAT.
what we're debating right now.
Well, you did. You said,
No,
you
it's
have no
not.
science to back up your
No,
claim.
I'm
But
saying you don't
that's-
have
the
any
literature's
science to back up the
completely-
brain aspect of it, baby. I'm
Oh,
not.
you're missing the
agree.
point.
I agree with what you said. I agree with I know
Okay.
Asians, black. I understand how that falls. I promise I do.
Okay.
But there is no facts behind my brain being different because I'm black and yours is different because you're white.
But
That's all I'm saying.
okay.
Period.
Well, you're missing the point. The point was to say that IQ as a function of brain. That was the point. So
Okay.
you're sort of missing the point.
Can we move
He's
on?
saying the fact that there's different tiers of IQs based on race must mean that the brains are different based on
I
race
get
as well.
that.
That's an
It sounds like
incorrect
y'all coming
Yeah,
up
but that's what I'm saying. That's just
Okay, so
something
you-
that you cannot prove.
Follow up
Like
there.
I understand. I
All right,
completely
so
understand.
y'all
I
don't
understand
agree
it.
with that conclusion.
These
Okay.
are all opinions.
So we can
It's
agree
not
to disagree
Yes.
on this topic.
Yes.
course.
All right.
Yes.
Did anyone else have anything before?
No.
Oh, I want to share
No.
something. Okay,
Alright.
this is inspirational. Okay, you guys, K through 12, I was like a completely deficient student, C's, B's, like not very good at all, didn't believe in myself.
Yeah.
Got into college, did really, really, really well, and now I attend a top 50 medical school. So this is why I'm like very passionate about not believing that it's just completely nature, because I do believe, that it's not completely nature and that it can also be nurture, because my environment changed when I got into college and now I'm
And-
balling out. in
And I'll
school.
piggyback off that because since I'm on a quest to go to law school,
Hey.
something about the LSAT is
Mhm.
that the way it's written,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
literally written.
Racist.
Hmm.
No, not racist, but it's actually inclusive because it's written to a standard that no matter socioeconomics, background, anything, if you study the correct way,
Mhm.
you could be a bum living
Exactly.
under a bridge and you
Mhm.
can still score high enough because
Exactly.
the verbiage, the types of questions, it's literally about things that you can learn.
Yeah.
It's not about anything else that like
Mhm.
life experiences.
At all.
None of that matters.
School isn't even about life
That's why I would
experiences.
So,
argue
ladies, you guys
intelligence.
are all familiar with the fact that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, so
Yes.
I understand where you're coming from. That hey, I beat the odds, etc. But you got to also remember that being a hard worker doesn't necessarily mean that you have IQ, and it goes the other way around. Because there's a lot of people that have high IQ that are lazy as fuck and don't make it in life either.
Right.
So I've always said that there's a lot of people that are book smart that do well in school, but they're still morons. I mean, we brought them on the show plenty of times. Like girls that have high level degrees and they're still idiots. So
PhDs.
I would say education and schooling and being a good student doesn't necessarily mean you are intelligent.
It's just your
Correct.
drive.
We
It's your
should all
drive.
take a. You
Yeah.
should do one time like everyone takes an IQ test and then like comes on.
That'd be funny.
Yeah,
But
yeah. go
Just
ahead.
to your point as well.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier,
Mhm.
your choice of wanting to learn and become better made you who you are today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even though we might have, for example, like issues of, schooling, environment, and these other external issues. If you're a person that wants to do better for yourself, Black, white, Asian, doesn't
not
matter,
happening.
Chinese, once again, it's all on you as an individual to do
Yeah.
better for yourself.
And
Correct.
I would
I
argue
agree.
that it is nurture far more than it is nature. And I
Okay.
believe that Nick is arguing that it is nature far more than it is nurture.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
and it's part of a bigger point of view, which is that I think that genetics play a much greater role than people would like to believe. I think that so much of our behaviors are genetic. I think that so many of our attributes are genetic. And I think that people have a bias against that because we have this culture. It makes us uncomfortable
It does.
because genetics are unchangeable and they're immutable.
Mm-hmm.
So people have this idea that, but there's an answer for this. People have this idea that if something's genetic, it's very frustrating because then I can't change it. I can't improve.
That's not true.
But what it tells us, though, well, like height, like I can't make myself taller,
Right.
you know, and like
Well,
and there's a lot of
these
things.
days you can't.
A bald person can't
Yeah.
make themselves grow hair, and
Well,
that's
These days you can't.
I think mine said
Hold on. I used an invasive hair transplant. Genetically, I would have been bald. So he's correct. He's correct.
so. And so the point is that although the reality might be that genetics matter a lot, I think have a tendency to. It's wishful thinking that it's not so. Here's the thing, though. When it comes to these attributes, the answer is yes, inequality is real. It should make us uncomfortable. It's a fact. We see it all the time. And so many of the culture war issues are about inequality. Like when you look at the dating stuff or the sex incel stuff, it's about inequality. Gender stuff, it's about inequality. Race stuff, inequality. And the answer to inequality is that people are more than matter. People have souls. People are not just, what their product of their labor is or their house or how tall they are. People are created by God. So the answer to inequality is not to ignore it and not to get offended by it or make it uncomfortable. We have to take those things into account to govern society because we can't solve problems if we don't know the real causes. And so I posed earlier, what's the persistent fact is black and white inequality. What's the answer? Is it racism or circumstance, or is it genetics? People should be open-minded about the genetics because we want to solve it, but we should love people regardless of, whether that inequality is baked in or it's a result of discrimination. So that's just my thesis.
I mean, you package it really nice.
I got a question.
Okay, and then her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something else more fun. But
Like what? Like what?
but
I wanna
but
talk
you
about your views
just
on
had me
marriage.
think about something. Because if it's genetics, right? So why is it when the slaves came over who were kings and queens, their offsprings didn't transform, I guess, or bring those king and queen qualities and attributes?
I don't think they brought kings and queens over. Because
Okay.
what happened is that
Not
even
kings and queens. Okay, let me not mud it. Okay, cool.
well,
Not
but
kings.
blacks sold
But-
other blacks into slavery. They
No, I
were
know.
captured in wars. So
But again, you said it was genetic. So there were smart blacks that got
Yeah.
brought over here because we wouldn't have half of the shit that we have if we didn't have the smart blacks that came over.
well, and here's the